The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. Welcome back, everybody. I'm back. As if you were watching last Monday, you know that I had to excuse myself to go to jury duty, and that is over. And I have been excused and done my time, and I'm very happy to say that. Yes, I'm back. Anyway, so I'm Shannon Penrod. For those of you who are new to the show, I identify as a proud pony. That is a parent of a neurodiverse individual. This is Autism Live on the Autism Network. Our entire mission here is to provide information and inspiration to that larger autism community that starts, of course, with the beating heart of our community, our individuals who identify as being on the spectrum, being neurodivergent, neurodiverse, all the words that anybody likes to use in that category. They are, as I said, the beating heart of our community. But we include in that larger community everyone who loves those individuals. And sometimes that means that you're the spouses, the boyfriends, the girlfriends, the parents, the teachers, the practitioners. But if you care about somebody on the spectrum or you are somebody on the spectrum, we welcome you. Our show is for all of you. Good morning to Rodney and good morning, Autism Journey with Elijah. I feel like it's been forever since I've seen you. It's been a week, but I feel like I've been gone for 6 or 7 months. So forgive me. It all feels new again this morning in a good way. We got a great show planned for you, an amazing guest who is really going to open our eyes to a lot of different things. And she's coming up. It's Naomi Riley, and she's coming up in just about 18 minutes now. But before we get to that, lots of different things to talk about. Want to especially get to our jargon of the day. And then we got a little video for you because the toy guide is up. And it is that time of the year. And I'm very excited about the toys. I love, they said, I know, hello, stranger. Nice to see you. Nice to see you as well. I know you have been very busy. I've just caught a little bit on Facebook. It looks like you got all kinds of things going on. Very excited for you and all the magic that you're making happen this Christmas season. And this holiday season, not just Christmas, so many holidays this time of year that we all enjoy. And I love, HBO used to do that. There was a special, I don't know if it's even on anymore, but it was a special for, well, first there was Goodnight Moon, and it was kids talking about bedtime and all of those things. Then there was a Christmas special, and it was little kids that would, and I think it was just a holiday special, little kids talking about the holidays and the different things that have happened at the holidays. And they covered Christmas, and they covered Kwanzaa, and they covered Hanukkah. And I loved, my favorite quote was one little kid who said, well, if you think about it, it's about the lights. All of them have something about the lights. And I remember just going, oh, I love that. Kathy, I'm so glad that you're here. Kathy has written and said, my 7-year-old son is ADHD and autistic, and it's so hard. Kathy, I'm so glad that you're here with us because you know, there are a lot of us in this community that have been through some of the most hardest things in the world. So you've got a wealth of information that's here. And yes, it absolutely can be hard. And I also want to say that what's hardest is sometimes getting the resources and finding the support. It's our kids aren't the hard thing, right? I always like to remind everybody when we talk about how hard it is to parent, our kids are wonderful. Our kids are amazing, but they have challenges. And sometimes helping them to get over those challenges is hard. And sometimes finding the resources is hard. So I'm so thrilled you're here. I want you to think about like what is the hardest thing, and maybe write to us about that so we can talk a little bit about that and maybe get you a resource to help you with that. Okay. I love the blue hearts. And Autism Journey with Elijah said their toy guide is a huge help for us this year, waffling off toys for special needs families. Super excited. Oh, you are so great. You are absolutely amazing. Okay. So let's jump into the jargon, and then hopefully by then we'll talk with our guest, and maybe Kathy, you can tell us what particularly is hardest right now, so we can start to work on that, so you can get to the better days, to the better moments, to those fabulous times that you deserve and your child deserves. Okay, so our jargon term today is one of those things that can sometimes help. It's visual supports. I don't know, whenever I think of supports, I don't know, I think of like a sports bra, right? or suspenders. I don't know, but something, it's something that's helpful and useful and keeps things moving along. So let's take a look at what our first definition of visual supports. And lately we've been our first definition. We've been doing AI to check in with AI, and see, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. So visual supports. Visual supports are visual items. Oh, really? Such as pictures, symbols, objects, gestures, signs, or written words that help with communication and understanding. Okay, what I love about this definition is that it helps broaden our minds a little bit from just thinking it's a picture, right? It can be a picture, or it can be a symbol, or it can be a gesture. Ooh, that's really, really helpful to me. Okay, but let's move on to our other definition. This is from easterseals.com. Visual supports are written words, pictures, and or icons that convey information in visual medium. Individuals with ASD are typically visual learners, and conveying information visually assists with comprehension. Okay, there are some assumptions in here, and let's pick that apart a little bit. But I love that Temple Grandin talks about how there are 3 different types of learners in any environment, right? That we're all very different, that there are people who are visual, there are people who are concept, and then I don't really understand the third one, although that is what my son is, which is that they can see in 360. I am a visual person, which means that I tend to go towards visual. Now, Temple is also a visual person. And so my method of learning, what's good for me to learn something fast, is along the same lines of what's good for Temple to learn, although I can build in some other things because I'm not solely visual. But Temple has done talks where she shows, they've scanned her brain to show her visual cortex, and it is like, for most of us, it's, it looks like a thin reed, but for her, it looks like a tree trunk. That how her brain takes information in is through visual medium. And when she thinks about things, she thinks about it visually. Now, we just had, last Wednesday, we played an interview with a young woman who newly diagnosed on the spectrum, who has no visual, none. She thinks of something and there is no visual that pops up on the screen in her head. So I think we need to be very mindful whenever we're picking a learning method first, of knowing, how does this person learn? How do they take in information? The example I always like to give is my friend Therese, who I absolutely love, and she's brilliant. And she'll ask me for directions to someplace, and she'll say, what's the address and how do I get there? And what she would like for me to say is, the address is 2015, Ventura Boulevard, and you need to take the 5 freeway, and then you need to get on the 405, and then you need to get on the 101, and the exit you get off is, Tampa, and you turn right. Like, these are the concrete things that she needs to be able to find the directions, which is very rational. Let me just say, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It just isn't how I do directions in the least, because I say you want to turn left at the right, at the Ralph's. And she's like, what street is that? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, do you drive here on a daily basis? Yes, I drive there every day, but I don't know what the name of the street is. But you turn right on the route at the Ralph's. She's like, how can anyone deal with you? Because I'm a visual person. It's frustrating for her, for me to give the directions, because I'm giving them as a visual person. And so if I want to help her to arrive someplace, I give her the street address and I let her put it into her navigation now. And we don't even try to do that. I will have to Google the address, because sometimes I don't know what the address is. But this is why it's important to know how somebody learns. Now, if you have a visual person, and let's say that many people on the autism spectrum are very visual, right? They're very, very visual. So we can use that knowledge to help those people learn. I will say that in a classroom, because I'm a former classroom teacher, it was drilled into me that anything that was important, I needed to have it available visually on walls where I was teaching. So I had classroom rules and they were on the wall. I had, what's coming up next on the wall. Big concepts that we were learning, I had on the wall. That's not enough for everybody, right? Let's be mindful of that. But for our kiddos that are visual, it will help them a great deal. Think about street signs, right? All the street signs that we have are for the visual people so that we can see what's coming. I will tell you at night, it's hard for me to see some of the street signs, right? Because I'm getting old. So the navigation helps me, right? To be able to know where I'm going. That's visual too, but it's also oral. Okay. Kathy says, thank you so much. It's been so hard to get support. I finally got him an IEP. Good job. He wants to do everything his way and gets angry if he doesn't get his way. We need all the resources that we can get. Wonderful. And she says, my son loves to give me directions like a GPS. Well, that's a wonderful thing. It sounds like he's got some map skills. But once we find out which way somebody learns, we can maximize that, right? We get to work and we go, okay, how can I teach this to this person? Now, my son has a little bit of the visual, a little bit of the conceptual, but he can see things in, like, I remember going to Disneyland and they had this diorama and it showed you, I don't know, I don't even remember what it was, but we're looking at it from the front, and he said something about the back of it. Well, we had not been to the back of it. You really had to like skinny past a curtain to get to the back of it. You could get to the back of it, but it wasn't like a normal thing for people to do. We had to ask for permission to go behind it. But he could tell me what the back looked like. I'm like, how can you do that? Are you psychic? But his mind can construct things in 3D. There was a commercial. I was always asking him, like, what does it look like in your brain? And he would try to describe it to me, and he could never describe it, right? But I remember there was a commercial that showed one of those green grid, like what they had in a holodeck of Star Trek. It's a green grid where you can project things. And so there was a commercial where it's the green grid, and they drop down a chassis for a car, and it's just the chassis. And then they drop the car over it, right? And you get to see the car. And when my son saw that, he was probably 9 years old, and he said that. And the car could turn, and you could see the other side of the car. And my son said, that's how I see things. And I went, what? Really? So important that. And now, I didn't have that knowledge of that's how his brain worked before that, but there are clues that people give. So if you find that if you start using visual supports, and I always recommend that, I always recommend that you have visual supports in the home, in the classroom for your kiddos. See if they work. If they don't, it's not like it's wasted time because it can still be a teaching tool later on. But if they are someone who responds well to visual supports, what you will see is that the level of anxiety goes down. So Kathy says that her son loves to give directions like a GPS. Imagine, I always think about when we used to get MapQuest, and I would print out MapQuest, and I get car sick, so I would usually drive. So my husband would have the MapQuest directions, and I'd be driving, and I would say, what's next? What's next? What's next? And he'd be like, give me a second. I'm like, no, I'm driving. I need to know what's next. And my anxiety would go up, up, up. And I get to the point where I would want to take the paper away from him because I needed to know what was next. If we go through life and we don't know what's next and we don't know what's coming up, some people are really go with the flow with that. And they're like, oh, it's fine and I'll be fine and whatever. I'm not one of those people, and I don't know very many people that are like that. And I don't think that we want our kids to be like that, where we just motor them through their day and they don't care about anything. I think what we want are people who are thinking and wanting things for themselves, which means they want to know what's next. You will, see that there will be a reaction. I love the friend who said that, everyone votes with their hands and their feet. So even if you are working with somebody who is nonverbal, you can tell by what they do with their hands and their feet and their body. If they're shrinking back, they don't like this. This is not good for them. And it can be, I don't know what this is. It doesn't necessarily mean I don't want it. It could be, I don't know what this is. And if I don't know what's happening with my day, so I always, always, always tell people, have a visual schedule. This is important in a classroom, but it's important at home too. And there's so many different ways you can make a visual schedule. The least expensive way, if you have some cheap wrapping paper, you just use the back of it. You cut out a piece and you tape it to the wall, and then you draw things on and say, first we're going to do this. And you can put a little clock next to it that it says this time, and you draw out what you're going to do, and then you point to it every time. So first we're going to run errands, then we're going to have lunch. And you draw whatever you're going to have for lunch, right? To show your kiddos. You can do this on your phone too. They have apps for it. I love people who take a cookie sheet and they make magnets so you can move it around on there. So many different ways to do it. But it reduces, for the kiddos who are really wanting some control, it can really help to reduce that stress. I see that Autism Journey with Elijah said, anxiety is way up there for me. Yes, I need to know all the time. And when I don't know, I'm lost. I think that's a lot of us. I think that's a lot of us as parents. Imagine what that's like when you're a kiddo and you can't drive and you can't just decide, oh, I'm going to go someplace. My husband and I had this very interesting conversation the other day about how there are very few times in your adult life that you work a job where you aren't allowed to go to the bathroom whenever you want to, where you don't have to ask permission, where you don't have to wait to be able to go to the bathroom. Even here in this show format, if I needed to use the restroom, I would just say, and now we're going to take a break. And I would be in charge of that. We would take a break and I would use the restroom, right? But when I was a teacher, and I was teaching, when I taught college, sure, I could say to my students, give me a second, I'm running to the restroom. When I was teaching high school, not allowed. Not allowed. And I just felt the pressure of that. If I needed to use the restroom and I was pregnant, I would have to call down to the front desk, and they would have to find someone who was available, like a vice principal or somebody, to come and watch my class while I then walked all the way across campus to the bathroom. I'll tell you what, couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Imagine what it's like for our kiddos. So every time I hear a kiddo say, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm like, let's stop everything and get them to the bathroom, because to have to wait and to have to ask permission, like for a bodily function, woo, right? Give your kids choices. It will help with the anxiety, right? And for everything, but especially those things, seems like it should be, that's a human rights issue to me. We were someplace the other day where a little kid had to ask 5 times to go to the bathroom. I was ready to kidnap them and take them to the bathroom myself. Do you know what I mean? That gives me anxiety. Anyway, I digress. Visual supports. You can use it for all kinds of things. The other thing that I in keeping with what we're going to talk about today, my dad had a stroke at a very young age, and he had aphasia. So it meant that his brain could not, he knew what he wanted. Of course, my dad was a brilliant man, but he couldn't connect to the part of his brain where the words were stored. And he was working with a speech and language pathologist to be able to reconnect to the words. And one of the things that she had my mom do was label everything in the house. And this was right, it was right about when Post-it notes came out. So there were Post-it notes all over the house. So there was a Post-it note on the clock that said clock, right? If she, there was you would open up the refrigerator, and on the orange juice, There was a Post-it note that said orange juice, because my dad would just fill in a word. It was a nonsense word for him. He would say, I want a Zelmo. And we wouldn't know what a Zelmo was. The visual supports helped him to be able to find that word, because it was text, right? And that's one of the things that visual supports can be. But it helped him because it was a reminder. He would grab the orange juice and he would read it and go, oh, this is orange juice. It's not a Zelmo. And it helped him. Having gone through that with my dad helped when my son lost language, because I realized there's lots of different ways that we can find the pathways in the brain. And it filled me with the hope of, we're going to find the way, right? So there we go. How does this lead into talking about our guest today, who's absolutely amazing, Naomi Riley? Oh, no, we were going to go to the toy guide first. We're going to show you a thing from the toy guide. Then I'm going to come back and tell you about Naomi Riley, and we're going to get busy talking with her. But first, short video, take a look at our toy guide.
The wait is over. All month from now until the new year, join Shannon for autism-live's 2024 Toy Guide Review. Shannon will break down the award-winning toys in multiple age groups, where to buy them, and how your purchase can help the Autism Network continue to provide information and inspiration to families this holiday season.
Isn't Chris Desmond amazing? I love that whole thing, because the power of a toy. Oh my goodness, the power of the toy. So our toy guide is available, but also we have a whole thing on, we have our own storefront on Amazon. If you go, you can get connected to the toys there, and it also helps us. So just letting you know. But I'm late to talk about Naomi Riley. So Naomi Riley is here with us today to talk about a wide variety of things, but she is a brain injury survivor turned influential motivational speaker, and her work is especially relevant for educators and parents. As a founder of Text Pledge, which we're going to talk about, which is a nonprofit based in the greater Grand Rapids, Michigan area, Naomi focuses on addressing critical social issues in school, from distracted driving to gun violence. Her 10 pledges, and we're going to talk about one of them in particular, encourages students to practice compassion, speak up against injustice, and support others during crises. Values that resonate deeply within our community, certainly, but also the education community. So let's welcome Naomi to the show for the first time. Hi, Naomi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're so thrilled to have you. So Naomi, I don't know where to start. But if you wouldn't mind, maybe it would be beneficial for you. You identify as somebody who's a brain injury survivor. If you don't mind, if it's not too personal, talk to us a little bit about how that came to be in your life.
Sure. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory on my life, I was a kid that grew up with a disability. So I love what you guys are doing. I think it's incredible. Kids with disabilities are right at my heart. And I know that we all learn differently. And especially when you have a disability, it makes it a little bit harder. So long story short, I was a mom of 3 kids, and I still am. In 2017, I was dropping them off for school, and I was hit by a distracted driver. And then I was put in the hospital for rehab and everything else for 9 months. And those 9 months, I had to redevelop my neural pathways. I had to learn how to walk and talk correctly, understand, just comprehend sentence structures, things that we take for granted so much. I had to learn how to redo all of that. Wow. My fine motor skills and gross motor were really affected. And during that time, I became angry. And I know that, sometimes, kids, when they're frustrated, they can become, angry, right? And this goes back to my childhood, even, because sometimes I didn't understand some of the ways that, kids learned versus myself. And, so I put myself I didn't put myself, someone else put me back into the hospital to redevelop all of my neural pathways. And it really took a toll on me as far as my mental health, my physical health, although that recovered. But I really wanted to find a way that I could help students navigate through some things that we have allowed to happen in society by no fault of our own.
Absolutely.
We are seeing so much of so many different things that are going on, from distracted driving, discrimination, and the list goes on, right? And it can be really quite scary for students to try to navigate their way through all of these things. No, you're not supposed to do that. No, you're not supposed to do this. Stay away from this, stay away from that. But but then I wanted to help them find a way that we could raise their mental health and become a little bit more emotionally intelligent to protect themselves and the world around them.
And I want to talk about all of that, but I have to ask first, were your children in the car with you when this happened?
Thankfully, no. I had dropped them off at the school, and I had actually dropped our dog off at doggy daycare. So no one else was in the car, and I was so, so thankful. But, I was at that point, I remember looking up at the hospital room ceiling, asking God, why did he leave me here? Because I didn't want my family to have to go through all of the struggles that I was going to go through, and now I look back, it's 2024, and I've made miraculous, recoveries and have excelled to, new heights that I never thought I could. But, one thing is that when you're, developing those neural pathways, it's really important to eliminate any distractions that you might have to help your goals move forward.
Well, and look at, not only have you made great strides for yourself, but you've turned this story around and have now made it something that helps other people. So one of the things that you had said that you wanted to talk about is a term that I don't know that I know what it means. So let's start by talking about differential disabilities. I don't know that I've heard that term before.
Sure. So when you look at all the sorts of disabilities that people have, right, it can be anywhere from ADHD to OCD to all of these cognitive learning disabilities. And, every single one of them has to be treated in a different way, in a different light. Now, for myself, I dealt with a little ADHD, but I had more of a physical disability. But through that, my mental health was tremendously affected. And so, if I hear of a student that has a disability, first of all, what is a disability and what are they specifically dealing with? I know some kids have a lot of anxiety, and some kids have, the ADHD combined with that. They have OPDD, and there's so many different things. So let's take a deep breath, for every single one of them. What we do is highlight, okay, this is who you are, but that doesn't define who you are. Everyone is created unique and special in their own way. And every single person has such an amazing gift to give. So let's, turn this around and figure out what are your gifts and how can we help those blossom.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I always recommend to kids, no matter what age they are, is to take a step back. Okay. And then the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to write 5 things that we're grateful for. One thing is that does, it opens your mind to really hone in on the grateful things that we have here in our world, in our nation. I talk a lot about kids in other nations, and, most of us have a roof over our head. We have meals provided to us. And that's some of the things that kids in other nations don't have. And so by showing these students, hey, you know what, let's take a big step back and let's write down the things that we are grateful for, will help your mental health just in that day alone.
Absolutely. And I one of the things that I know, because we've dealt with a fair amount of disability in our family over the years, and my mother was born clubfoot with both feet facing backwards. And so in our family, it was just understood that, you know, everybody's a little bit different and that we embrace our differences and that, you know, that's what makes the world go around. But I've noticed that that all works safe in the cocoon of home, but then you send kiddos off to school and they get to hear what the rest of society thinks about being different. And it's a very different story. So I love the fact that you are trying to meet that head on by not only helping to build the self-esteem of our kiddos, but trying to communicate to other kids about how we are compassionate. You have the text pledge that you do, but you also have, what is it? You have a set of 10 pledges. I want to hear about both of these things, the text pledge and the 10 pledges.
Sure. So text pledge is the absolute, this is the overall program is called text pledge. We have a ton of free resources for teachers on our website. You can go to textpledge.us and look under the teacher resources. We have tons and tons of activity books that are out there for your students for free. So Text Pledge is a synergistic approach to help students understand there's some serious issues going on in our society, and it's our job to pay attention to our surroundings and what's going on, and then protect themselves a little bit more. So the synergistic portion of Text Pledge, one, our program provides the curriculum, right? We also provide on our website, as students grow and get older, over 5th grade, 6th grade, on our website, students can go and learn what are the statistics for these specific issues for our nation. So for the United States, you're going to see what are the statistics for distracted driving? What are the statistics right now for hate crimes and discrimination? And then they're going to go to gun violence. What are the statistics for gun violence in our nation? And so we make sure that these are updated on a monthly basis so that students can understand this is exactly where our nation is at and all of these issues. Now, another tier to our program is that if anyone downloads the Text Pledge app, yes, you'll have the programs on the app, but you can also have the nation's first smart card. So a student, if they were needing a number in a crisis situation like 911, 988, but other numbers like poison control, missing child, human trafficking, the Red Cross, United Way, all of those numbers have been put and housed on our app, so it's easily accessible for a student. So that's the Text Pledge program.
Okay.
So let me move over now to the actual text pledges.
Okay.
So we have programs for K through college age now, and we're absolutely thrilled to be introducing them into the education systems. Our programs now for K through 4, we allow the students to just learn about certain issues that are going on in society, and they're all tailored to the grade level that they're at. And so K through 4 gets to learn about some specific types of issues that are going on. They're not too too scary or anything like that. We're just sharing with them. Here is what distracted driving is. I love right now that a kindergartner or a first grader can know what distracted driving is and they can tell their parent to put the phone down.
Yeah.
Or, they can tell a student or their brother or sister, hey, we need to quit fighting in the car because, mom or dad is driving and that is a distraction.
Yeah.
And so, we created a curriculum that has distracted driving, discrimination, acts of violence, and bullying and cyberbullying. But here's the thing. We also show these students how to raise their mental health, how to use tactics to protect themselves and others around them. These students need to understand that they are so important and they should never tolerate any type of bullying or any type of violence. I always help the student remember that it's never you that's the problem. It's always the person that's committing the acts of violence or bullying.
Yeah.
And then we also show the students how to protect the environment and animal rights. We felt that those are really important issues for all ages.
Yeah.
So after 5th grade, we allow students to take a text pledge. They are able to go on to our app and say they are going to watch out for all of these issues and know that, hey, we don't want these to happen in our society anymore, and we're committing to watch out for these things.
Okay. I think, it's so, what my mind goes to is that a lot of times in August, or not August, April, different A month, parents will say to me, that the teacher has reached out to them and said, is there anything you want us to do for April Autism Awareness Month in the classroom? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the parents are caught on their back foot. They're like, I don't know. And I'd like for you to do something, but I now have to come up with it. I think this might be a great way to start. And I would say to parents, don't wait until April. Take a look at this now. And in January, talk to the school and say, I'd like to do this in March, so that the kids are ready for April Autism Awareness Month. Because if there's one thing we need right now, it's to make sure that the younger generation is learning about compassion. I cried 3 times in the last week about things that I heard that are going on in schools, and people have reached out, and things that are happening last week that weren't happening the week before. We're headed in the wrong direction. And I feel like of course we need to be telling kindergartners about distracted driving, but of course we need to be explaining bullying to kindergartners. And I love that you've put together a curriculum. Now, is there a cost for people to participate in any of this?
So no, if they want to pull all of the curriculums off the website, no, there's no cost to any of it. If they so choose and want to order the books, we do have big books on Amazon that they can order. And so that is what we have right now. The free versions are always going to be free on our website.
That's amazing.
If your school wants to implement and order big books, then yes, there is a cost to that.
Okay. And I love that, you keep it so that it's not scary. This is the thing that stops a lot of people. Let's be honest, Naomi, that they go, well, we need to talk about gun violence, but how do we do this without creating nightmares for the kindergartner? Mm-hmm. Right. And parents have been saying for a while, they're doing active gun shooter role play at school, and that sometimes the kids come home and are a little upset about that. But you have taken particular attention to this to make sure that it's not too scary. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so every single grade level has a book dedicated to acts of violence, and that's with or without weapons. And it's carefully crafted so that these kids can understand, hey, these things are good, these things are bad. This is what should be used in society. This is what should not, and our curriculum team put a lot of time and thought and effort into creating some amazing content so that kids can understand, okay, this is a serious issue and I need to really watch out. Because if we're not reminding their young brains, then we're not going anywhere. We can say and try to make these laws stand to what they want to be, but it's just asking the kids to really watch out, be careful, know these things are dangerous, know acts of violence, can lead to other things. And so, that was the bridge that, we wanted to make sure was there, because it does take a long time to get laws passed. And then who follows those laws, right? We can just look at distracted driving as an issue right now. Some states have the laws where it should be all hands-free. Others don't. And whether these people follow the law is another thing.
Yeah.
And so when you're showing students, hey, you know what, these things are kind of serious, and we really need to start, taking on some, accountability. And hey, if I can be someone that stands up and says, hey, I know this is wrong, I think we're doing a great thing for both the students' mental health and then anyone around them.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about distracted driving, because as you said, there are some states where they say it has to be all hands free. I'd love to hear from you, somebody who's been through a pretty catastrophic result of someone being distracted. Is that enough? I wonder about this all the time, because we're hands free in California, but we're all on our phones all the time. And I can vocally say that, and I can say, hey, Siri. Oh, my phone's going to go crazy. Nope, there she is. Don't talk to me right now. But I can say, hey, whatever, and I can say, call somebody or text somebody, and I'm not texting them. But from your point of view, is that distracted driving?
I don't think it is if you're hands-free.
Okay, I love hearing that.
Yeah, I don't feel that it is if you're hands-free, because, we all listen to music. We all listen to, different, whatever it is. And you can talk to Siri. And yes, it's frustrating when Siri doesn't get it right or misunderstands you, right?
I've called Siri names before, and she has said to me, I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's, okay, so here's the difference between just talking to Siri versus your phone. Looking at your phone. It takes 5 seconds to look at your phone in a text and then look back up. And that could cause a serious accident. And there's numerous, people that die every year from accidents. And so the laws are in Michigan hands-free as well, but do people follow them? It's only been a law in our state for, I think, 2 years now. And, I know 100%. If I go down the road, I will see, someone holding their phone in their hand. So laws can only go so far.
Yeah.
And, saying, hey, you got to do this now, or you got to do that now. Why not just ask, and say, hey, what about this? I was watching a special on CBS last night about the happiest nation in our world, Bhutan. And, those people start out their day with respect for others and every single one around them. And if we just maybe took on a little bit of that, we wouldn't have so many of the issues that we're seeing here in the United States.
What do you do when you're driving down the road and you see somebody on the phone? I'm curious.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
There was someone this fall that was in front of me in his Corvette convertible and just going on his phone, and he was, swerving back and forth. Of course, the anxious part of me, wanted to drive up and say, you're going to cause an accident.
Right.
But, I'm so cautious on the roads anymore. I keep both hands on the wheel and try to stay as safe as I can. I do drive a big SUV now. To protect myself a little bit more. It's not, as long as you know that you're doing your part on the roads, that really matters. It's the other drivers that really don't know. And all we can do is educate them as best as possible.
So you don't toot your horn at him or report him to the police when he's driving?
I don't. I think it would make more time for me to try to get in touch with a police officer than not. But yeah, of course, course. I mean, yes, I've wanted to, yeah, but I, with that specific person, I did not. Some, if we see them, then yes, of course, we'll be like, you're not supposed to have that in your hand, so.
Since I was a kid, I have fantasized about, there was like one Bond movie that I saw my dad watching where James Bond had a car where if he pushed a button, it would send out rockets or whatever. And I thought that was too violent, but I wanted one where you could push it and it would like pop a little speaker out that would say, "You're driving distracted," or something. Wouldn't that be great? Or
awesome.
Right. Pay attention to the road. Or that just they could push a button and it takes a picture and sends their license plate directly to a police department with their location so that they're turned in. Right?
Well, right. That makes complete sense. Yes. I think that we can do our best to be those amazing citizens to report all of these things.
Well, it gets hard though, right? Because then,
sure does.
You don't want to cause the accident finding the button that says the thing. Right. In any case, so important that I know that we have this mentality where we go, well, it's not time to teach that. A kindergartner isn't texting and driving, so it's not time to teach them. But I love that you've got your finger on the pulse of this, and it is important. That's what we did with recycling. And now we have a generation of people that say to their grandparents, why aren't you recycling that? Right? And we need to be doing that with the more important stuff. I remember we were, here in California, we didn't have a lot of subways and we didn't have a lot of trains, and they were building that infrastructure. And 10 years before they were having the first train go, they had us teaching train safety to kids in grade school. And I remember going, why are we doing this if the trains aren't coming in 10 years? And they said, because these kids will be driving in 10 years. And this is how we're going to start this. And they'll go home and they'll tell their grandparents, give them this assignment. They'll work on it with mom. Mom will learn the rules. And it was the way they were addressing it in society by teaching it to kids in second grade. And afterwards I went, that's pretty clever. That's pretty smart. So I love that you are doing this. Give us all the 411 about 411. Where do we go to get the curriculum? What are the names of the books? What do we Google? How do we do this?
Yes. Okay. So you can go to textpledge.us under teacher resources and see all of our mini books for every single grade level. Now you can also go to amazon.com and type in Text Pledge Learning. And those are our big books that we have available. And we actually do have one for adults too, because we were thinking along that line that the adults might need some refreshers on a few different things. So our adult book is a fun. All of the books are activity books. So you're not going to find anything that's like constant, like crazy learning that is going to bore kids. It was our vision to really help, excite them a little bit too. So you can go to amazon.com, type in Text Pledge Learning and look up your student's grade level or, an adult version too.
Yeah. Now, of the pledges that you have people do, I understand that number 2 will probably be of specific interest to our audience. Tell us what that is.
Yeah. So, standing against discrimination, being a disability rights advocate and a mental health advocate, I think that, we've created a culture for so long where disabled citizens and, people with intellectual or mental health disorders have kind of been, I thought of differently. And that's not okay. I feel that kids with disabilities really need to be protected a little bit more. When I consult with teachers that work with kids with disabilities and knowing myself what I went through, yes, that can be very, very difficult, especially when you're not like other students, right? So why am I not like them? I think that went through my head a zillion times growing up. And one of the things that is the most important thing that student can do is know that they are unique and wonderful in their own sense. What happens outside of the classroom or in the schools is not their fault. It's not their issue. If someone is bullying them or treating them different, just help remind them that you are so special and unique, and everyone will cherish you for that. Just find your own abilities and your own gifts, and you're going to keep doing great things.
I have to be honest that one of the studies that came out, it has to have been 15 years ago, talked about bullying for kiddos on the autism spectrum. And it's one of the things that they found is that bullying can't happen when people stick up for people. Yes. And so that a simple act of traveling in a pack, having friends, makes somebody bully proof. Now, this is hard because with autism, there's a social skill deficit. So not only are we working on this person's self-esteem, but we're working on helping them to keep and to get and keep a friend, right? But one of the things that they saw very clearly, especially in junior high and high school, is that kids who are on the autism spectrum who had friends were less likely to be bullied. That bullies don't attack a crowd. And this goes right back to last Monday, we did a whole program on my favorite resources. And it goes back to making sure that your child's social skills are on point enough to have friends at school, and that we as parents help cultivate friends. And part of having those friends is teaching them how to be compassionate with your child and to stick up for your child should anything happen in terms of bullying. And I think that's a lesson for all of us right now, that it isn't just on the school playground, but it's there on the school playground, that we all need to speak up for other people. And sometimes that can be, if somebody is talking in a way to someone, I've seen a lot of viral videos of things that I'm like appalled. But I think if people stand up to bullies, if we lock arms together and stand up to bullies, not only are we helping somebody in that, but we're also modeling that for the younger generation. So I love that you're teaching this to the younger generations, but we also have to be modeling it. Don't you agree?
Oh, so much. I agree so much. But it's a cultural change that, has to occur, and teaching them at the youngest age, that's going to be have the most impact. Reminding their brains every year to just be on the lookout. No, this is wrong. They'll remember over time.
Yes, and not normalize it. It's so funny because sometimes you just don't realize that the smallest action. I was in a Costco a couple of weeks ago, and there was, I'm going to say a lady of a certain age. Well, I could be considered a lady of a certain age, but this woman was having a hard time. At Costco, how they have the big things, and she was trying to get to something. She was looking at the dates, and she was trying to get to something that was going to last a little longer. But she was trying to move this big cardboard box that was full of stuff, and her arms were shaking as she was trying to move it. And I was walking by. There were so many people standing there, but I was walking by, and I said, "Let me help you with that." And I came up and I helped her and I moved it over. And then it became clear she needed another one. I came back and I moved the other one. And I said, "Do you have what you need now? Or is there something else I can help you with?" The smallest little thing in the world. But then I walked away with my shopping cart, and a man stopped me and he said, "Thank you." And I said, "Oh, is that your mother?" He said, "No, I've had my cart banged by 22 people and I was in a really bad mood. And you just reminded me that I could have helped her too."
Oh, yes.
And I thought, okay, well, I guess every act of kindness is so important right now. Every act of kindness, because it reminds the person next to you, oh, I could be kind too. So my day was made. I was like, oh, and he said, "It's just so nice to know that there are good people left in the world." And I was like, yeah, we're everywhere. And he was like, "Well, I'm going to be that the rest of today and moving forward." So that made my day. So let's all model what we want to see in the world and teach our kids. And tell us the websites and everything again, so we know exactly where to go.
Yeah. So you can find us on all the social media channels, from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and a couple others, YouTube. But then textpledge.us is where you can get all of our curriculum, and just, download it under the teacher resources. And we love to hear from everyone that uses our programs. And if you wanted to implement it for your school, we'll hook you up with one of our team members too.
There we go. Textpledge.us, you guys. Go and check it out. Naomi, thank you so much. And I'm so happy for you that you're doing so well and that you have turned what was probably the worst day of your life into the thing that's making a difference in the world. What a great example you're setting.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I absolutely love your show. I love everything that you guys are doing. And I look forward to watching your growth.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing what you're doing flourish. I'm picturing a field of flowers. That's what you're creating. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, you guys. Wonderful. So I wanted to leave just a minute or two because we had asked Kathy. Kathy, if you are still there watching with us, I want to talk just a second about being angry when you don't get your way. I really want for all of us to think first about ourselves. How are we? How do you feel? I know how I feel when I want something and I can't have it, right? It doesn't feel good. And one of the things that we talk about on this show all the time is it has to be fair, right? Everything has to be fair. And when you think about what it means to be a kid, it's not always fair, right? I don't get to choose when I go to bed. I don't get to choose what I'm having for dinner. I don't get to choose what they're teaching at school, right? And some of that doesn't sit well. That's normal for it to not sit well. It's normal to not be happy when you're not getting your way. What isn't productive is if that makes you, like throw a big tantrum, a big meltdown, lay down on the floor and refuse to eat. Like that is when we get into what we call the challenging behavior. But if we start from the premise of there's a reason why I'm unhappy, and part of it, part and parcel, one of the things we talk about all the time is that tantrums and meltdowns are not a part of an autism diagnosis. I know I just blew up the internet for a lot of people. You're like, what? But it happens, right? But what they are, they're not a part of an autism diagnosis. What they are is a symptom of when I am not able to communicate my needs effectively. Think about that for just a second. If I had a way of communicating and saying, what I really want is this, right? That would go a long way towards not having the tantrum and the meltdown. Now, I can't always have what I want, and I can't always have it right now, right? So there are other skills that go along with that. And one of them is learning how to wait, right? Because maybe I have to work for something to be able to get it. If I want to have a Corvette, I got to work and I got to save my money. We were just reading the first couple of chapters of Where the Red Fern Grows and where it talks about how this boy had to work for over like almost 2 years to save the money because he really wanted to get these puppies. What a great lesson and a great time at 7 to read that about how he had to wait and he had to work and he had to save his pennies before he could get his puppies, right? But we can also teach waiting, and we start and make it fair where when we communicate with them and teach them a way to ask for what they want, which might mean, holding up a card saying, this is what I want, or it could be sign language, or it could be pointing to something, right? So first we have to teach them a way to request it so we know what they're asking for, right? And then we start to teach waiting where we take a baseline for how long can this person wait, and it might be 1 second. And so we start by just asking them to wait 1 second. We're just going to wait, count to 1. Oh, now you got it, right? And they might have a hard time during that 1. But then we say, okay, now we're going to count to 2 before you get it. We're going to say 1, 2, now you have it, right? And you can work up to them waiting a week to have something if you start and go slow. But it starts with understanding that it is normal to want things. It is normal to get frustrated when you can't have it, especially if you don't have a way of communicating that you want it and you don't know, you don't understand, I will get it eventually. That eventually we start teaching first this, then this. So first you have to put on your shoes and then you can have the thing you want. And in the beginning, that's a very hard concept for kiddos to understand. But if we make sure to make sure that they get whatever the thing is that they're wanting as a result of waiting and first doing this, we will get to a path where they understand, oh, okay, it's no big deal. I put on my shoes and then you're going to give me the thing that I wanted. And that is how we get to better days. One little second at a time, one little increment at a time. And it gets easier because it doesn't have to always be hard. So keep that in mind. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you today. Please write in. You can write to me, Shannon at autism-live.com. Always happy to take questions. Always happy to take questions for Dr. Doreen, which brings me to the fact that we're at the end of the show. And tomorrow I'm told that we have Dr. Doreen live. She will be on location, not in the studio, but we will have her live with us. So I know it's been a couple of weeks because I had jury duty and she had other things, but I'm told that we have her tomorrow. Let's hope that that's true. So you guys can be sending in your questions or tune in. I don't remember what our topic is, but all will be revealed. I think it's about what other things should you be looking at. What is it? Positive outcomes. What are the things that you might have forgotten along the way to get to the best outcome that you possibly can for your child? Because there's so many things. Brian says, good morning and so sorry about your dad. Do you know what? Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I will tell you that like everything else, it became a learning opportunity. And I'll be honest with you, this is going to make me cry a little bit, but it meant that my father changed a little bit as a result of the stroke. And there were things that were hard, but it also opened up other parts of him, other creative parts of him that, at some point in life, you get to the point where you go, oh, there is that thing and that had to happen in order for this to happen. And that's when you get to acceptance. And we did get to that with my father, where it opened up a part of him that was more about artistic expression that actually was amazing. So I'll be honest with you, when my dad finally passed away, I remember saying to friends, I had to mourn two of my dads. I mourned who he was before the stroke, but I mourned also the wonderful man that he was as a result of the stroke. So little life lesson, right? But thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, yes, great guest. And you take care as well. We will be back tomorrow with Ask Dr. Doreen. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.